The professionalism is still high. So good evening. Welcome to Carbon Calling's webinar. My name is Liz Jennifer. I'm one of the co-founders of Carbon Calling. We've got Nick here on the call in a moment, and she'll introduce herself in a moment. Sorry. Thank you to Frank Parkinson Agricultural Trust for funding these series of webinars. They follow on from some evening meetings we did last year, and we've still got some evening meetings to do this year, where we've focused on two farmers who have made some system changes. And so tonight we're going to hear from William Emmerson and Harry Hodgson. So we'll introduce them shortly. Just if you've got any questions or queries as we go through, if you've got problems where you can't see slides or there's some issues, if you use the chat function at the bottom of your screen and just type into that, and then one of us will be monitoring that through the call. And also as we head to presentations up the way, at the end of each presentation, we'll gather those questions up and ask Harry or William that, and then at the end of the two presentations we'll have a general discussion. So again, the chat function is where we will be collecting that information. Nick, do you want to introduce yourself now or in a bit?
I'll do it in a bit if you're I don't think my camera's on anyway.
It is.
Is it? Can you see me?
Yes.
Because I can just see your screen. But oh well, hello everyone. I'm Nick Renison, uh, um, other half to Liz with Carbon Calling, and yeah, I farm up in Cumbria with my husband Ren.
And for those people less familiar with what Carbon Calling does, is that we do a variety of things, but the main thing we tend to focus on is a conference that happens in the summer every year. So the one that's happening this year is happening between the 24th and the 26th of June. We've gone weekday and we've gone an extra day just because we like that much pain. And it's still near Penrith. And as mentioned, this is our fourth one. And so the headline speaker for this year is Jules Matthews, who's a New Zealand consultant specialising in setting up regenerative farming systems and engaging farmers. So that's what is our main role. We've also just recently got some funding to do other work as well. So that's still in sort of development, and we'll provide more information about that shortly. If you're not familiar, we're on Instagram, and that's the account Carbon Calling 2025. We also have a YouTube channel where you can find previous webinars we've done and also podcast recordings. And we have a website that is where, once we get going, we'll have more information about the conference that's happening in June. So we're a mixture of, we do quite a lot of knowledge exchange events, but also trying to, and we started out very much as more sort of regenerative and biological farming approach, but we're now sort of shifting slightly into more mindset and getting people in the right headspace to make changes on the farm. So this is I love a graph, as if people know me, I do love a graph. And what we have to remember from Carbon Calling is we have a very particular approach that tries to encourage people to get into the green zone, which is at the bottom. So our conference is very much designed to get people curious and open, and occasionally joyful. What we're generally finding, and it's been made more extreme in the last few months, is that farmers are moving more and more into this flight and fight and sometimes freeze section. So the red zone is the fight and flight, and that's where we get quite a lot of anxiety, worry, irritation, frustration, and particularly things that have like the recent inheritance tax changes have certainly encouraged that quite shorter fuse in quite a lot of farmers, and also surprisingly, or not that surprisingly, but a lot of people are now moving into this sort of the blue zone, which is the freeze zone, where they are this feeling of helplessness. They're not quite sure what to do next. Not saying that Carbon Calling can solve any of this problem, but what we're trying to do is develop resources and activity that is ensuring that people spend as much time in the green zone as possible when they're working with us. I've also been on a recent course and learned all about the drama triangle, which I thought I would share with you. The other thing about Carbon Calling is we like to do slightly different things, and this is a new thing that thought people might be interested in. So our challenge that we have, and this is not just about farming, this is in a range of different circumstances, but we tend to can get into this role where we feel like we're the victim, that we have no control over the set of circumstances, um, that we can't necessarily um, take the next steps. Within this, we tend to have a dynamic with someone that is a rescuer, someone that comes and sort of solves all our problems and sort of potentially overwhelms us, but is the one that we look to come up with solutions. So we can, doing the analogies, could be some of the advisors or consultants that come in and just sort of give farmers a list of 1 to 10 things they've just got to do, and hopefully that's the sort of analogy of a rescuer. Within this, we've also got the persecutor, which is there is where quite a lot of the feeling of blame comes from. So they're blaming everybody else within this set of circumstances. So all in all of this, this is not a healthy place to be. But quite a lot of people would be able to find this dynamic in a lot of the relationships they work with, particularly on farms, and appearing to be particular in family farming situations, that some of these boundaries are more easily leaky than in other situations. It's wide generalization, and I speak of generally because of this is the circumstance that I sometimes deal with on my home farm. So what we're trying to think about is how we start to empower farmers and others to actually see that we can change this dynamics, and that's through this thing called empowerment dynamic. So what we're hoping to do is get the person who potentially identifies as a victim to think more as a creator. So actually, what action can they take? Acknowledging what they can do well. We've got the rescuer that is becoming the coach. So instead of necessarily taking control and trying to do everything for the person that is the so-called victim, is actually how do you empower them to make their own decisions? And the challenger that is there, that is the sort of has strong opinions, is the person that is able to challenge the situation, but also put up strong boundaries. So some of this may not resonate with you at all. It may be you recognize certain people or can think about certain people in those sort of dynamics. But again, what it highlights is, from a carbon calling perspective, what we're aiming to do is the empowerment piece. We are not aiming to be the rescuers. We're aiming to be the challengers and the coaches in this dynamic, to try and get those farmers or range of farmers empowered to make slightly different decisions on farms. It's a long way of saying that, but I've justified my course I went to. And if some of you had been to the groundswell when Nick and I wore some masks, this is I spoke to someone called Holly last year, and she'd done quite a lot of work with farmers on mental health training, and also sort of how do you get them, not necessarily dealing with times of crisis, but also how do you create positive mental health and a lot of that work is about meditation and self-care. And this was her example that she uses quite a lot with farmers, and that she felt that quite a lot of farmers resonated with, because it was to do with feeding animals. So the idea that inside everybody there is these two wolves, one that represents evil, anger, jealousy, greed, resentment, lies, being inferior, and one that represents this joy, peace, empathy, hope, truth. And we all of us have a decision on which one we feed, and the one that wins is the one that we feed. So this idea that yes, we have a set of circumstances that aren't always favourable, but we also we have a choice of how we react and respond to that circumstance. So we are not trained in any of this. I am really fascinated in how we can get some of this applied into the farming community, and we are still sort of developing some of that. And certainly at the Carbon Calling Conference that's coming up in June, we'll be exploring a bit more of this. But again, thanks to Frank Parkinson for money towards tonight's. Nick, do you want to? I'll stop sharing. It will affect people's screens slightly less. And do you want to say anything else, or shall we hand over to Harry?
Just quickly on the meditation, I always think that's a little bit woo-woo, but I'm one of Michael Blanche, who does Pasture Pod. He sends out, I'm one of his patrons, and he sends out a Monday morning video audio diary. Part of his routine every day, every I don't know, 6:30 in the morning, is to meditate and write down what he's grateful for.
Yeah.
And you would, it's so I always think it's a bit wacky, but maybe I need to sit cross-legged and do a bit of Zenny stuff.
Maybe. I think maybe start with.
But all this stuff, I think it all seems for some people, and for me a little bit, it's a little bit out there, but I think it's really important. I'm really pleased it's part of Carbon Calling.
Okay.
So
I'm not.
crack on with it.
We won't quite lead a meditation session in June, but
No, but tonight we're joined by two amazing farmers who have got they've had experience of us before. So Harry spoke at Groundswell, and William did a meeting for us at Forest of Bowland. And yeah, we're just really grateful for them to giving us their time tonight.
okay. So we're going to hand over to Harry first. So I've known Harry for a couple of years. He's in a discussion group that I help to manage up in County Durham. So he's just what I always take from conversation with Harry is how does he fit it all in. So we'll talk through his system. He's got a range of photos that he's going to take us through. So at that point, we'll hand over to you, Harry. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I haven't been prepared enough to do a full presentation, so I've just pulled together a few photographs just to sort of give meaning to what I'm talking about and to prompt me along the way and not get too distracted and start warming off piste. Sorry, I'll click share. I'm trying to make this work to start with. Yeah, so as Liz said, we farm up in County Durham. We're sort of right on the border of County Durham and North Yorkshire, and we're very much a family farming business. We converted to organic. Sorry, I'm supposed to keep going. This is the family. It's very Model-esque shots. During COVID, a local photographer was at a loose end, so she very kindly came and did some quite cringeworthy at times, but some nice family pictures and around the farm, which actually probably as we get older and time goes on, we will actually look back quite fondly on those pictures because the kids in those pictures have grown a huge amount already. But yeah, in this picture, obviously, my dad, my mom, my wife, and my two children, William and Henrietta. And we are very much a family business, and I'm very proud of that. We are tenants of Raby Estates. So we're on an Agricultural Holdings Act tenancy at home, but then we have a wide variety of other bits of land on grazing licenses, FBTs, and more latterly a share farming agreement, which I'll come to. The farm is a very dry farm. We're in a very dry area, and with it, before we moved to the farm in 1964, the farm was used for sand and gravel extraction. So there was literally no topsoil when my dad took over, no hedges, no fences, and that sort of set my dad on a sort of on the course of looking at nature as much as anything else in terms of actually trying to build organic matter in the soil and return the farm to an operational unit. And we've sort of just kept going from there, really. We're not we haven't what you see is what we have. We haven't we're not a family of deep wealth or anything like that. Everything we've got, we've just sort of started off small and just kept going and investing in. So whatever we've done, we've generally started off relatively small and just kept sort of plowing back in and working hard the whole time. We have so this is the family where we're at now, a little bit older, but it's nice to share. The farm is fairly diversified. We keep Aberdeen Angus cattle. We have a few longhorn cattle as well. We do free range eggs and free range poultry. In this picture here, have some of the free range poultry that we do, free range organic poultry. Sorry. and we process and kill those on the farm, and market majority of them through the farm shop that we built on the farm and some converted stables. The farm shop was finished during foot and mouth in 2001, and that was when we finished our conversion to organic in 1999. Obviously, this is all started by my dad, and then I've continued it on. My dad will be in his 70s now, and I'm nearly getting towards 40, which is, I know I did get told I look young, but that's where we're at. Yeah, we also have the free range poultry. We pack and produce all those ourselves. So our main customer is Rureford Organics, and also supply Acorn Dairy, a local dairy to us, and a few other small customers, as well as our own farm shop. As I said, so with the farm shop and the chicken and all these enterprises, we have literally just started small. Like the farm shop started in the porch, selling potatoes. When my dad was farming conventionally, we used to grow potatoes, and then we started selling a few eggs, and we had 100 hens in a wooden shed, and we've just gone on from there. And the shop has as well. Like the shop today is fairly diverse. We have sell everything. Right, we are still small. Like I suppose nowadays people think of farm shops as this enormous sort of portal frame shed on the side of a main road. It's got huge amounts of departments and one thing or other. We are still very much a farm shop on a farm in converted buildings in our farmyard, but we do sell a wide range of products. A lot of the meat, except the pork, is all our own, and yeah, that has been a gradual process from a table and an old deep freeze to where we are today, with an on-site butchery, and we even have a post office for our sins, as the one closed in the village. I keep going through the pictures, some nice pictures of hens. We also, so a large part of the farm is the sheep operation. We predominantly run New Zealand Teflons, as they're called. So we have a sort of a variety of land types that the farm's on now. We go from sort of like riverbanks, ex-gravel pits, some better land, parkland, as you see, and then with the new farm we go all the way up onto the moor tops. So we find that the Teflon sheep are really just to me, when people ask like what's a Teflon sheep, what's it like, to me it's just a bang average sheep, and I mean that in a good way. They're not too big, they're not too small, they're very fertile, they'll breed well as a ewe lamb. They're not plain, but they're not excessively meaty like a Texel. They're just like, they'll kill out it between a ewe and an R grade. We don't get any O's and we don't get any E's, so they're very consistent, probably about 65 to 70 kilos. They really thrive in our sort of our forage only system, so we won't feed any concentrate feed, and we'll lamb those outdoors in end of April, and we will top all the ewe lambs as well. This is and we top all the ewe lambs with a chamois. A chamois is a pretty horrible sheep to look at, but they're tremendous for lambing to ewe hogs. You get very, very even, consistent lamb. They're born very, very easily, and they do well for us. They don't grow massively either, so they don't pull the ewe lamb down too hard. But they kill out very well, and they will kill out as ease, despite being born small. So I'm just pushing on through these slides. Obviously, we've long since been putting chicory and plantain into our lays before actual herbal lays even became a thing. We just saw it as an opportunity to try and build a little bit more soil, a little bit faster on our stonier land, and actually tap down into hopefully some nutrients and also some moisture in the dry times. And this is actually quite an old picture, probably taken about 8 years ago, of one of the first swards we put in with plantain and chicory in it. this is the one. This is a sort of I would like to say that all of them look like this. This is a pretty a catalogue photograph of what a tephron should be. Two nice lambs at her sides. With a sheep, we try and make things as simple as possible. So we don't do a lot of tinkering with sheep. We don't have sheep in the yards every week. I try and sort of make things structured and straightforward and simple. So we'll have the ewes in at sort of pivotal points during the year, but then after that we try not to do too much. We do clip them twice a year, which sounds a bit counterintuitive that it's actually creating more work by clipping them twice a year. But for me, when we don't have a lot of staff on the farm. There's just me, one full-time person, and then I have a guy who helps on a Friday. So by actually getting the clippers in, it takes a lot of the work away of sheep for me. So by clipping them twice a year, we clip them pre-lambing in March. So that means that I haven't got to dag them out. I haven't got to belly them. I won't have to dag or belly them throughout the summer because they're not carrying much fleece. As you can see from this image, like the ewes just started to grow a fleece again as she's bare around her neck. And then just as they're starting to get wool on them again in the autumn, we'll clip them again. And that saves me having to dag them, go around the farm, and all those sort of problems. And whilst they're in, we'll be bolusing at that time and doing any other things that need to be done. But actually, by getting the clippers in twice a year, it's saving me work. I actually think it's better for the sheep. It means we're getting in sort of contract help as well to get through the sheep. Whereas when me and Michael used to try and crutch and belly all the ewes, it probably on and off with all the other jobs we had to do, it might take us a week to get round all the ewes. Whereas actually we get the clipping team in, we have it all done in a day. So these are just little things that we're trying to do to speed things up, use help where it's needed, and then we can get on with other enterprises on the farm. This is a classic tephron ewe, Sean pre-lambing in April, where she's lambing here. She just pushed this one out. We found actually people, it does sound a bit savage clipping them pre-lambing, but we've clipped them. Obviously, it's weather dependent with the rain. We've clipped them less than a week before they're due to lamb in some instances, and it's had absolutely no effect on the ewes or the lambs inside them clipping at that stage. Liz, you might have to tell me if I need to speed up. I apologise. I won't get into too much detail.
Got about 10 minutes, Harry, so don't worry.
I'll keep rattling on. But we find it does. We find it works really well for us. It actually makes the ewes will be a little bit cold for those first few days, so it makes them eat more. So the amount of milk, as you can see in this picture, the amount of milk that the ewes have is ridiculous. And because we winter all our sheep on forage crops, all that mud and all that dirt underneath has been washed, has been clipped away. So we don't get any watery mouth, and we very seldom have lambs that haven't found the teat. So it's just another little process and a job that we do, which actually we think makes a system more efficient and actually saves us on time and labor in the long run. These are some tephron ewe lambs on a red clover lay. We aim to, I think it's sort of organic can have a bad reputation that it's kind of a sort of low input, low output, more of a holistic lifestyle of just wearing sandals, as I get told by one or two people. But I disagree. We are organic farmers, but we want to produce high outputs with low inputs, and that is entirely possible. And I think it's entirely possible for anybody, regardless of, well, if you're not doing it organically, you're working to less regulations. But by using really good genetics, the right systems, we're rotationally grazing, we use clean grazing, so we're switching between cattle and sheep on alternate years, so reducing our parasite burden, and then using winter crops so we can get all our stock off the grazing pastures during winter, so we're not doing too much damage to them, and then the quicker to recover in the spring. It means that we can achieve good outputs with that very low inputs. So we use no fertilizer, no bought-in substrates or anything like that, and no feed either. This is a picture of us clipping them in March, and obviously clippers are in their hoodies. We also keep a flock of Hebridean sheep, which we sort of bought for a bit of fun and to sort of graze around the hen houses. And actually, the been a tremendous little sheep, and people, I've put quite a few pictures in, so I'll whiz through them, but no one believes me and everybody thinks I'm a bit mad having Hebridean sheep. But we cross them and they do tremendously well, like serious amount of hybrid vigor, and have really good lambs. So I'll just whiz through these. Like, this is a ewe here with these are her 2 lambs, and you can see the lambs in the background on those other ewes. Like, they really are a high performing little sheep. So we have about 200 of those, and they'll have about 800 to 900 of the Tefrons. The Hebrideans we haven't got around to clipping early on because their fleeces are just too coarse. I think the clippers would come back if I made them clip them in March. Also, my little boy, he has his own flock of Hebridean sheep, so they're very much pride of place on the farm. We also keep New Zealand Suffolks. So obviously buying in the Tefron genetics is something we need to do constantly for our maternal lines. So we buy those in from Robin Hume of Easy Dams. But we obviously then use our own terminal sires, and I like to be in control of a lot of the processes. So we do breed our own New Zealand Suffolks as well. We top those as ewe-hogs as well. Everything has to be topped as a ewe-hog, and that's the sort of thing we get out of the New Zealand Suffolks as well. They'll all lamb outside. Nothing gets special treatment or lambed indoors, etc. We have actually started again with taking on the new farm, buying in a few store lambs again. So we buy in some Chiviots off a farm in Northumberland, run them through winter, and sell them in the spring, about May time. And actually, the last couple of years have been really quite profitable, as you can imagine, with where the prices get to in the spring. Big passion of mine, and something that we've sort of really expanded and grown into in the last few years, is the Aberdeen Angus cattle. We breed high performance. Like, EBVs are massively important to us, but also is keeping on a low input and keeping them cheap. We focus on not just one trait such as growth rate or calving ease. We're pretty hot on the sort of full range of EBVs to create a balanced animal. Obviously, calving is absolutely essential. Where these cattle are in this image here, they're actually 20 minutes from home, and they'll calve by themselves, and I'll go across once a day. So calving is absolutely essential. But we have regularly in the top 1% and top 5% on terminal and maternal indexes at the same time, as we're trying to push forward with those. And having gone, I was in the camp of it's all rubbish EBVs, and I was quite negative about them. And actually, having gone down this route and gone into high performance EBVs, it's been night and day for us, and been hugely transformational, and something that I sort of regret being scolding. But I suppose, as Liz said, that was probably the bad wolf inside me, and the good wolf saw the light and been pushing on with these. We outwinter everything. All the cattle are outwintered. So we have a variety of outwintering systems for the cows, from bale grazing, kale, and fodder beet. So here's some heifers on some kale. This was actually second grazed kale. So we grazed this with lambs, and then it grew back, and then we grazed it again with heifers over winter. There's a nice picture there. So a lot of these are just like from I don't have Instagram, but this would be my Instagram slideshow if I had one. And fodder beet. This is the first year we've been putting cows onto fodder beet in a bit of a trial. We're actually 13 days in now in the transition of this batch of cows onto fodder beet, and touch wood, it's going quite well. It's a good, effective and cheap crop with a huge amount of feed there. So it's something that hopefully we'll probably look to do more and more of in the future. And again, it's just putting pressure on our cattle that they have to perform in a low input system, they have to perform outside. And you quite quickly sort of see the cows that don't perform and can't quite cope with that wintering. And they'll go to a terminal sire, and then in time they'll disappear off the farm. But we're not in a situation where we can just cull them because we don't think they're performing quite right. We we'll put them to, we have a terminal sire bull, and they'll just produce store cattle or fat cattle for the shop. This is like the top end of the farm, so we're going up to about just about 1,500 feet here, and we tried out wintering some heifers up there last year. We did try defer grazing it. Believe it or not, that grass was defer grazed, but it's so exposed that the grass just got blown flat to like sort of a centimeter of the floor. So we did have to supplement them up there. It's not all sort of beer and skittles, as we would say. Like it is hard work, and water pipes freeze, and it's very easy to show lots of nice pictures, and life's amazing. But obviously, I'm only going to show nice pictures, but it is hard work, and there is always challenges, whatever you do. And anybody that doesn't tell you about any of the challenges or any of the problems is obviously not telling a huge amount of truth. We have a few of the native Angus, the original population, and we up on this new share farm, there is the requirement for the native breeds at risk supplement as part of the farming agreement. So we have some original population Angus. It's quite hard to get scale in this picture, but these are sort of like the original belt buckle cows. Not a huge amount of performance in them, but extremely easy calving. They won't have calves over 30 kilos. I think a largest calf to date has been about 27, 28 kilos. But they're very, very good converters of forage into fat predominantly, but they will survive up there and produce a saleable calf. And obviously we sell the bulls off those as well, because it's a very quick and easy way of putting high maternal genetics into somebody else's suckler cows, and also dropping the condition, the frame size, if that's something that people are wanting to do. Also, we do have a few Galloways as part of it. We haven't got enough Aberdeen Angus native population to fill the requirements of the agreement. So we do have a few Galloways as well, and they will get zero supplementation at any point, other than if the snow is really deep, we'll put a bale of hay out, but the rest of the time they're on just rough grazing and scavenging. And here's one of the white Galloways. It's a pretty special place up there. It's not hugely productive, but obviously for the landowner, it's good because there's a huge amount of subsidy can be up there, and then we can sort of lightly farm it with a variety of cattle and sheep. But it is enjoyable going up there. Like there's some black grouse, the wildlife population, bird life up there is just incredible. So I haven't got around to meditating yet, but I do occasionally go up there and just turn the engines off, and you just sit and listen. It is an incredible place to be, and I'm very lucky to have the opportunity to work up there. It is very different at home, where there's a lot of noise, a lot of roads, and lots of hustle and bustle. You can hear nothing up there except grouse and curlews and the peewits and all these different things. It's very good. The main core of our cattle business is producing and selling bulls, and then everything else will go through the shop as beef. So I'll just have a slight product placement of a few bulls that we've produced and sold over the years that I've managed to put in. We will sell. I haven't sort of pigeonholed myself into a corner that everything has to be low input, or everything has to be this, everything has to be that. Like, I want to sell bulls, and that's why we produce different types of bulls. We produce the native bulls, we produce some slightly bigger ones, we produce some thicker, smaller ones. We need to have a slight variety of bulls for a variety of customers. And we will go to Carlisle Angus bull sale and also Sterling bull sale. Those animals do have to be fed considerably harder than what we would sell from home normally. But there's people that go to these sales and want to buy Angus bulls from those sales. And they are a great showcase of the breeds. It's a great day out for people. And I think they do have the place. And every part of the industry has a place. And it's something that we enjoy being part of. And this bull we sold at Sterling last year to a breeder up on Hadrian's Wall. So it's nice that they go to other pedigree breeders, and you get to, which you sometimes don't always get the opportunity to get people to come to the farm. See, I'll keep moving on. We do show once a year as well. We go to Northumberland show. I know that's out of sort of a lot of the sort of what people think is practical for farming, but for my children and stuff, like I don't want farming just to be numbers, mob grazing, moving electric fences, not do like lambing outdoors. Like it is important that the kids can get their hands and involved. And my children do enjoy it, and it's something that it's very alien to me, and I do my best, and it's a whole another world. But it's a good world, and you always learn, and you can. There really are top stockmen that do all this sort of stuff, so you do pick up a lot of things. This was some limited success we had. The first time I showed a bull, I was first and breed champion, but I was the only one there, so I can't claim that. There was actually somebody else in this class when I won, so I was quite proud of that. But with the Angus, it's very important. Like these are just a heifer. This is what high performance will do. This little heifer here, she is top 1% of the breed milk, and that's what you get out. And the bull that went across that heifer was in the top 1% terminal and maternal genetics. So it really does pay for us. And there's some other examples. These are some calves probably winning. We've been using the quiet weans, and they've actually been transformational. We put those in, but again, we try and sort of lump jobs together. So we'll get the cows in, they'll get vaccinations, the cows will get weaned, the quiet weans will go in, and then then we'll get them back in the end of the week. The cows will get scanned, and the quiet weans will get taken out, and the cows will get weaned off. And then they'll go back out onto crops and back out onto grazing, and we can do that. They can be taken off their mothers, and there will not be a single noise, and touch wood, no pneumonia, and they're back on behind electric fence grazing away, and that's all for a £3 piece of plastic. They really are good bits of kit. You do need to handle your cattle twice to obviously put them in and take them out, but we try and lump together jobs when I've got help to make the process not too painful. We've started with the new farm that was Chef Farm. We've put a lot of herbal lays into there, and we're running 75 Angus cows over there. So that's are you waving to tell me to hurry up, Liz, or are you good?
Yeah, last few slides, please, Harry.
I think we're getting there. Sorry. Yeah, keep going. Lots of Angus cows. Maybe for the sort of the woollier side of it, like, and talking about the green zone on Liz's chart, about things we need to be thankful for. Like, I know we're under a lot of pressure financially. We're under a lot of pressure from inheritance tax. Government has has zero support for us, and doesn't seem to have a huge amount of interest. So there is that danger of feeling isolated. But also, like when I was trying to pull these pictures together for this, like, and you're going through and looking at it, like, it is phenomenal, the industry that we work in, and we are extremely lucky. Like, you get to work with your children on a day-to-day basis. You're always at home. I do think we have to be very grateful for what we have as an industry. And yes, staying in that green zone is very important. Like, if friends who work in London and stuff, and they will have considerably. Well, they'll have cash in the bank rather than red in the bank. But I wouldn't swap it. I wouldn't want to go into London every day like they have to do. We can, like, sometimes you do think, like, is it a job at times? But yeah, it's just important that sort of take time to reflect on, actually, we have a pretty unique workplace, and it is hard at times, but also at times it is pretty special. Finished. Apologies. Probably haven't said everything I should have said.
Thank you, Harry. Some amazing pictures as well. There's one question or clarification question, which is your fodder beet organic, and how do you keep it so clean?
The fodder beet is not organic. It is on the new farm, which is it's just like a separate entity. It's a Chef farming agreement, and no, it's not organic. And I have a very good agronomist called Hall. I'll give anybody the number that keeps an eye on it. I wouldn't have the faintest idea how to grow fodder beet. He does it well. I arrange it, but he does it all for me in terms of what to do when. That is the downside of it, and it does kind of go very much against sort of my organic ethos. But it is a great product for outwintering cattle cheaply. So it's something we're trying.
And I think you have tried to grow it organically in the past, haven't you?
Yeah, I've grown it organically for 2 years in the past. I won't go through all my pictures trying to find it. It did all right, actually. I would say the yield would be about 50%, but considering there was no cost other than the drilling, we've got poultry muck. So we put a lot of poultry muck on it because it was a very hungry crop. And then we just drilled it. And I bought from York Auction Centre an inter-row weeder for a couple of £100. And we did try inter-row weeding it. And it did all right. And the inter-row weeder worked quite well. But the problem is you're only actually weeding 50% of the field because you're still leaving where the plants are. And we got a massive problem with fat hen. It wasn't so much in the first year when you grew it. I say you just got a slight drop in yield from the weed pressure, but it did do all right, and we got some good results. But the problem was all your weeds go to full maturity. So when we then tried to put that fodder beet land back into grass production, like the take of fat hen was like something to behold. Like it just looked like a field of drilled fat hen. So we had to top it 3 or 4 times to try and get the grass sward to come through and survive, which is kind of a bit counterproductive. So we stopped doing it after 2 years, and we just grow kale or hybrid forage rape, which we can plant a little bit later and will outcompete the weeds.
Thank you, Harry. So yeah, I was going to ask a question about fodder beet, so it's done. And then there was another one about in terms of from a soil health perspective. So you mentioned that the fodder beet challenges some of your organic ethos. Is that bare soil, or is it just the chemical use, or are you becoming more aware of the sort of bare soil over winter, or it's that balance between how you want to run your system and cost effectiveness of what you're achieving?
It's just obviously to grow fodder beet well, you need to use a lot of agronomy. To be honest, the agronomist I use, he's very fair, and he won't do stuff that doesn't need to be done, and we try and keep it to a minimum. But it is a chemical hungry crop in terms of trying to suppress the weeds. I don't think if you have enough farmyard manure or poultry muck, you don't need to put like the fertilizer on it that people say. We don't really use much nitrogen or anything like that, and we just use a lot of muck. But it's more the weed suppression. In terms of the soil, it's a balance that you need to produce. Like I need to produce stuff to sell, and I need to do it cost effectively and cheaply. It does always worry me slightly with like the brassicas and stuff over winter. It isn't brilliant for the soil. Let's be entirely honest, but it is brilliant for the system in terms of it's a very, very cheap way of producing really high quality forage for various classes of livestock. That means that the rest of the farm can have a rest over winter. And yes, you aren't doing brilliant things for the soil, but you're doing it them non-brilliant things on quite a small area in relation to the yield that you get. And then if you're putting it straight back into to grass or herbal lay or some sort of mixture, and then grazing that for the next 4, 5, 6 years, I think it's so I think that the negatives outweigh the positives. The positives outweigh the negatives. And we have actually signed up to the Soil Association Exchange program, and being organic, we have a large place for ploughing still, because we haven't got the ability to use Roundup. And interestingly, they did all the VAS visual assessments of soil structure across the farm, and we actually came out extremely well, and we still plough. So maybe it's just our soil type can carry it. But like with the land at home not have had any fertilizer or glyphosate on it since before 2000, there's obviously enough soil biology going on that it can cope with a plough and a bit of a hammer from sheep and cows for a short period, and then go back into a nice mixed sward.
Thank you, Harry. What we'll do now is we'll hand over to William, if William he's there. Excellent. Are you happy to share your screen, William, and then we'll just check that's
Yep.
all.
I'll see if I can get this to work.
Thank you, Harry. We'll come back. We'll have a bit more of a chat once we've gone through William's bit.
Okay, is that all working and all right?
Yeah, and then just onto full screen.
Is that on
Perfect.
full screen or not?
Yeah, no, perfect.
Right. Okie dokie. Well, thank
Thank
you everyone for turning up this evening. Thank you, Harry, for that very interesting presentation. I know I've got a bit of pressure on now. Anyway, I'll make a start. So, I am William Emmerson. I farm at Willow Green Farm, which is the original steading that has been in the family for I don't know how many generations now, and then Landview Farm, which we rented 23 years ago now. So the bottom land goes from 160 meters, and then we're well up into the top allotment ground, which is what this picture is, and that's sitting just somewhere above 300 meters above sea level. So the farm overview is like 210 acres of permanent pasture, 190 acres of meadowland, and then we have quite extensive fell rights on Bolliop Common. So the area of land we gather is approximately 2,500 acres, so it's a fairly big lump of ground. So the rotation on the meadowland is we grow 30 acres of spring sown cereals, undersown with grass annually, and then we're also putting in like 6 acres of herb-rich layers in as well every year. But that will go up this year because we've gone into SFI. Like most of the meadowland is going to be going into herb-rich layers just because cynically we chase subsidies at our farm. Between 10 and 15 acres of forage crops planted, just depends on the field sizes. And all of them will go into finishing lambs. And there's a fair mix of, so we have some river gravel land, and then some fields that sit on clay, and then all the way at the top, right on the allotment ground. A lot of that's just 6 inches of topsoil, and it's straight onto sandstone. So the farm is we have 650 swale ewes to the swale tup. They are the fell flock, and then each year we took 300 swale ewes to the Leicester tup. So they're the older ewes that come off the fell. We have 300 mule ewes put to terminal tup, so that's Suffolk, Textile, Charolais. I might have to speak to Harry and try one of his New Zealand Suffolks. And then we've got 70 suckler cows, and there's just a fair mixture of them, Aberdeen Angus, Limousin, Charolais, and we calve in between 10 and 15 heifers a year, depending on what we call. So the first steps in like changing the farm were we started putting quite a lot of hedges in to divide some of these big fields up to make them more manageable to graze. And then putting these hedges in, we put electric on all the new fences. I put a really powerful mains electric fencer in at home, which is an absolute game changer for this system. Just getting electric right the way around your farm. It makes it so easy to hook on, hook off, and you've got a fair amount of power coursing through the job, which keeps the livestock in. Water installation, we're very, very lucky. We have a spring near enough at the top of the farm, which goes into a header tank, and then just simply pipe that around the farm. I use Plasson quick couplers, which are buried in the ground, and you can attach a trough, like clip it in, detach it easily, and it's just got a little valve in that opens when you push it in, and then when you pull it out, it locks it off. So I use like the Kiwi Tech troughs to go around as I go around the fields to move the water about. And it's kind of just key to in it. Personally, I like to have like hydrant in the middle of each field so that you can either divide it in half, quarters, thirds, like fifths or sixths, just depending on how quickly you need to move livestock. key to the system is just have it as flexible as you possibly can, and it should be successful. So here's just a couple of little videos of me cows. So when the cows are all on daily moves in a rotation. So here this is when I had 10-acre pasture divided up into 4 with 3 lines. So the sheep were going in one day, and then the cows were going underneath the next and moving the sheep to the next one. That is about the optimum I found for being able to manage this system with cows and sheep together. Like really, the sheep I don't feel you can manage grass with sheep. You need to have the sheep pick out the best bits and then have the cows manage, like set the residual. Because if you start farming the grass with the sheep, you will see a massive decline in performance. And I've made that mistake, and I wouldn't care. I've heard so many people tell me about it, but I still made the mistake. So it's best to learn from your own mistakes. So that's all about paddock size and shape. So if it's so my paddock sizes tend to be slightly bigger in the late spring when the grass is really cranking, bigger, and then you move them on quicker to try and match the grass growth curve. And then as the grass starts to slow down in a drought, start to tighten that time up, so it gives the grass more time to recover. So all the way through the season, I'm kind of adjusting to sort of fit this system, essentially. Now, simple tricks for the cows are just look on the left-hand side, you'll see what Greg Judy calls the death triangle just in front of the hip. If you can see that hollow triangle, you know you haven't given the cows have been slightly hungered, like you haven't got that room and fill that they ought to have. So that you know you've got the job right when that's covered up and bulging out, and it's not an issue. Plus, another little thing is if you see them grazing underneath a single strand of electric, you know that they're risking the chance of a shock, which means you're putting a little bit too much pressure on them. Like, and just simple things, are the cows happy? Like, is the residual left? I like to leave like a reasonable amount of residual, not just completely deck it. And then days until animal return, that just depends on how quickly the grass is grown. And this video is just, this is our rougher allotment ground. This was a little experiment I did with high impact. So I divided their day into 4 different segments, and I've got fence lifters in, as you can see, and that gave them a little bit of a segment each throughout the day, which was like quite a nice little experiment. And I will do more of it where I've got weeds, but it's quite a time consuming thing to do to set all them fences up. Hang on. There we go. So the key with sheep is just you really need hot fences to do this system. And it says there, farming for the sheep, not the grass. Really, you've got to just allow the sheep to have the best little bits and then move them on out of there, because their rumen cannot handle like resetting grass. The cows need to do that. Quality is key, just nice palatable leafy plants, and you'll get your performance out of them. Leader, follower, and clean graze, and that seems to be I haven't got to the clean grazing system, but the leader follower works. But with some of our sheep, I can't, like with the swales, I really struggle to do it because of the horns on them and getting tangled up in electric fences, and I've had my fair share of disasters. So sometimes you do have to unfortunately set stock some sheep, and we have different bits of lets away from home, and a lot of them are on a very loose rotation with the sheep, or they're just set stocked because it's just not practical to be going over there setting electric fences up. So lamb finishing is just to try and get as many away off grass as possible. Um, we'll try and do a lot more on the herb rich in the future. Like at the minute, I'm putting a lot of infrastructure in on all the meadows so that I can get them all divided up to manage these herb rich layers in as well as I possibly can. The fat lambs will feed them on like all the forage crops in the bottom left hand. That's turnips and kale, and that actually had quite a few different bits of species in, like crimson clover, berseem clover, and some sunflowers and bits and bobs to try and help with the flea beetle. It worked really well that year, like fantastic. I thought I had this cracked. The next year, surprisingly enough, I haven't got a picture of it because it did not look as good as that. But we will feed the fat lambs on oats, barley, a bit of soya, like the minerals and yeast and bicarb, like in hoppers. Like you just need to feed stuff if you want to get it away. This is quite a hippie type thing that I've started to do, and so this is Bokashi composting. It retains a lot more of your nutrients than just putting compost in it or leaving it out in the field for all your nutrients to volatilize away or leach into the groundwater, which we all get a lot of bad press. This seems an absolute no-brainer for the industry to get on board with and do. So, like with traditional composting, you can lose up to 50% of your nutrients. Like whenever you turn it, move it, you see steam coming off. Yeah, that smell, that's your ammonia disappearing off, like all critical nutrients. Whereas this, you treat it with bacteria, heap it up, put a sheet on it, it's ensiling your manure, and your losses are down to, I think, 2%, if I remember. So you're just treating it with a bacteria. I go around the shed once a week with a watering can. You roughly work out how much straw you're putting in, how many tons, and then I think it's 200 grams of this bacteria that you buy from Agriton and per ton of straw, and you just put that on, and then when you muck the shed out, pile it all up and put a sheet over it to keep all the air out. And this, it's quite a lot of work, but it's only once you're incentivized to do it, like this is an absolute no-brainer. If fertilizers gets to £1,000 a ton, this has to be a no-brainer. This system, there's more biology in it. It breaks down a hell of a lot quicker. The idea is because you're treating the shed with good bacteria all the time, that there's less pathogens in the shed to be picked up by livestock and less pollution, which is a great advert for the industry. So saving on inputs a bit. This year we have bought a 21-meter night sprayer, which I will be dissolving urea into and spraying that on. It's far more efficient for urea to be going. If you are going to use fertilizer, it's far better for the soil, far more efficient for it to be going in through the leaf than instead of into the soil being converted into nitrogen, which it can use, and then expressed it. It's far more efficient. P and K, that applies the same. Adding a carbon source to glyphosate, so I'll add a couple of litres per every 200 litres of spray. That just allows the plant to take in glyphosate. So instead of using 6 litres a hectare, I can go down to 3, using a bit less chemical. It has to be better. And I think I could probably push that a little bit more to get a reasonable kill if you're doing your reseeds. Plus, I reduce the pH in the spray solution. Just get a bag of citric acid off Amazon, 70 quid, and drop your pH to 4 with your glyphosate mixed up, and that really does help as well. That has been a fair game changer for when we're doing our mintail establishment of Swedes. You can really get your rates down on that, and just simple things like getting the pH right, and you're like, I'm going to focus a lot more on that this next year, getting the farm all soil tested this year, and we'll be trying to get things sat at 6.5 all over the farm. You could just use a lot less fertilizer. So observations along the way on the left is a prime dock that I've grown, and I class this as poor man's chicory. But this was 15 minutes after I'd turfed the cows into a new block, and they've got all this lovely quality grass in front of them, and that was the first thing they nailed. Like, some of these weeds, if grazed at the right point, or obviously the cow says to me, that is the most nutritious thing in front of them. And on the right, that is a hedge that I planted, but absolutely covered in cobwebs. And spiders are the top predator of like the insect world. So if you've got good populations of them, everything else in there is obviously humming away reasonably nicely. So the first mistakes, actual picture of me when I know I've ballsed up and got to explain to me dad what I've done. Not moving quick enough when the grass is really growing, farming the grass rather than the animal. Like, I've made this mistake several times. But this last year I have improved with the cattle quite a lot. I've bought a couple of slightly higher electric fence posts and allow the calves to go underneath to the next block, so they're getting a pick of what they want. And I've spawned a lot better calves this year because of that. Also, expecting conventional genetics to manage in like a grass system like this, like your dairy crosses are really going to struggle in this system, like tall, leggy, like narrow cattle. Like, Harry showed the perfect picture of what cattle should look like for this system. And if you can, really don't cut corners on infrastructure. If you're putting water in, put the biggest pipe in you can that your budget will allow you to. 'Cause if you will not get the flow off a 20 mil pipe, you really want to be putting at least 25, even if more, because you don't know what the future really holds. You might be having more cattle in one group. So you really want to be upping that to 32 and above if you can. Not having a plan C and possibly D sometimes. Plan A often goes wrong. The first casualty of the plan is the plan, and just simply accepting the learning process. You're going to make mistakes. There's a lot more at stake with this sort of system, but if you get it right, like, the fruits are there. So these are just books and references of people that I've listened to, and I'd really encourage anyone as well, just go and listen to the Pasture Pod. Anyone interviewed on there really knows the business, and there are some excellent farmers on there. And if you can get to chat to them, they're very helpful with all the knowledge. And that's what you really ought to do. Just surround yourself with really good people at the jobs and just learn off them. That's all I've done. Right? That's everything.
Thanks, William. That's great. Thank you. Can you just talk us a little bit about when you went to America to see Greg?
Yeah, so I went over to go and see Greg for a week, and that was a really fascinating trip away. If what so Greg has really small cattle, so his cows' mature weight would be less than 500 kilo. Like, his videos really don't do justice on how small they are. They'll probably be quite similar to Harry's native really small cattle having really small calves, but they really worked it. And he was on some pretty rough clay ground, and he was managing to outwinter. But when I was there in December, it's a bit different. We were wandering around in a t-shirt, but that was a very warm December for him.
So how long ago was that? A couple of years ago?
It would probably be 3 years ago now.
And was that your kind of, you were maybe 2 years down the line at that point, and that kind of spurred you on even more?
Yeah, 2 to 1 years. Yeah.
And the bokashi,
Yep.
where did you first see that?
I think I just heard about it on a podcast. And then I just thought, oh, I'll give that a go. I bought a little drum, did that little pile in the shed, and then it's all kind of gone from there. I've stupidly gone and put the full infrastructure in now to do it. And by the time we're finished, we could be up to nearly £50,000. But I see it as a long term investment to make sure all my manure's like we're going to have to really be well on top of our game with this pollution job and really be seen to do our part to completely nip it in the bud.
There's a question come in actually. Can you just explain more about your composting system? And you mentioned the watering. When you water it, so do you remove the cover?
No, I haven't. So that little pile, all I did was put the manure, each time I bedded just before I bed the shed up, I'd go around with the watering can, treat it with the bacteria, and then all I did was heap it up in the shed, put a sheet over it, and that was it. But weigh the sheet down so it was airtight, like you would a silage pit, and then I opened it 3 months later and spread it. That's all I did.
Okay.
But there was
Okay.
no smell of it, no smell at all. Even like the bit of runoff that came out of it, it had no smell at all.
Harry, are you tempted to any of this? Oh, you're on mute.
I did get a capital grant to put up a muck store, but we were on the old capital grant system before all the payments went up, and it was just after that COVID period when all was like concrete and steel and everything went through the roof. So I think my grant towards a shed was going to be about 18,000, and the cost of the shed with the concrete and the tank and everything underneath was going to be about 70. And I think it is a really great thing, and it's definitely got to the future. But I haven't got that sort of cash to put into it, and at the moment, so it's suppose everything has its limitations, and we've been investing in other parts of the farm. So everything has you have to weigh everything up, but it is very interesting and definitely looks like the future.
I was just going to ask you both, and then I'll hand over to Liz. So you're working with family. How do you not cope with, but how do you work with family to maybe get some of these new ideas going in the right direction? Do you have family meetings? Do you have someone to mediate, or how do you do it? William's smiling, I can see.
Well, unfortunately, me and my dad are far too similar and we're extraordinarily headstrong. And that does cause conflict quite a lot of the time, but also I'm very lucky. He completely just allows me to get cracked on. He's like, go on, just get it done and work it out from there. I'm actually very lucky to have him to be fair. And I'm just, oh, thank God he's not in the house for him to hear us say that. And I'll have to ask you to like redact that in the recording so he can't ever see it.
What about you, Harry?
I am very lucky. Like my dad, he's always been keen to have a go. We're definitely not people that are sort of stuck in our ways and quite keen, would sort of quite open to try stuff. So I've been very fortunate that my dad is very keen, and like a lot of what I'm doing now is he's sort of set the seed for and started. And yeah, I said we've always had to go at all sorts really over the years. We've had various different enterprises that we're not doing anymore, but we're just willing to have a go. I think that attitude comes through from my dad of just not really having the fear of failure, just having a go. So I'm fortunate in that that we do get, like, obviously, like we live, me and my wife live in the farmhouse, and then my mum and dad live in the cottage next door. We have a farm shop, like pretty much in between the two with the general public, and through the door just behind me is where the staff sit for their lunches. So it's quite an intense environment with not a lot of space. But I think my wife would probably disagree, but we do. We do. I think we all do pretty well considering the pressures.
And there's a question come in. Could you give us an idea of where your systems have come from and how you've kept, so where your systems were financially and how you keep a track on those economically going forward? So I guess how you monitor your budgets, how you monitor progress.
That for me or William or both. But it is something we've been guilty of, and I think there's probably an industry where it's quite widespread, is just sort of head down, arse up, and keep going, and presume if you're working hard, you're doing things right, and it'll come good, and that is something that we are now in a situation we're having to look at things a lot closer, because we do have like a variety of enterprises from cattle, sheep, poultry, farm shop, the butchery side. And sometimes it all goes into the same pot, and sometimes we don't have a lot of time to sit down and spend as much time doing the financials as we should. We were using a large accountancy firm, which basically just turned up, did our end of year, told us we had a cock up, and then left, and didn't really give us any advice or help. And that's been probably the biggest thing that we've done. Is it, I suppose with all these things, you've got to surround yourself with the right people and surround yourself with good people. And we, through a referral, we managed to get an absolutely brilliant accountant, not necessarily all agriculturally based. I mean, does have agricultural clients, but he's really helping us to actually sort of narrow down on the financials of each enterprise and look at stuff, and also gives us a lot of advice. I find sometimes some people are very wary of giving you advice in case it goes wrong, so they give you all the options and let you sort of give you the rope to hang yourself with. He's very good at just saying, no, this is where you need to be, and on that sort of stuff we're quite responsive to. So that has been a huge improvement to what we've been doing, and understanding the sort of efficiencies of each enterprise.
And I suppose a follow-up from that is there obvious enterprises that may not be with you in the next few years based on some of that economic analysis?
Well, we've cut a few enterprises over the years, but the beauty of our system is we're not massive in anything, but we have loads of bit, like, with reasonable scale and most of it. But if you have a bad year with the sheep, we don't get rid of the sheep, because the next year the bad year might be in the poultry and the sheep might come good. So it does, we sort of have a little bit of self-insurance, because we have those varieties of income streams. Like the hens have been absolutely sailing through, never been any problem at all. Every egg we've ever had, we've sold, we've never had zero wastage. And then like COVID, it went mental for eggs, because obviously everyone's at home. And like the whole world went mad for eggs, didn't they? It was just massive shortages. And then the year after COVID, everybody went on holiday, and like all our suppliers, all our customers, just their orders just dried up, and we were throwing pallet load after pallet load of eggs on the muck heap, because everyone had gone on holiday that first summer, and demand had dropped off a cliff. So at that point, suddenly eggs was looking pretty terrible. So it's good that we have that variety. We definitely don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Everything has up days and down days, but I suppose it's no not to have too many down years, and just persisting with it for the sake of it.
Same for you, William. Well, you said before, what did you say? You farm subsidy. Did you say that?
Yeah. Try and make sure I could farm still in a reasonable sort of method without like cutting production off a cliff. But we do try to get as much subsidy as we possibly can. On the terms of financials, like I just hate paperwork like that. Like Harry probably put it his best. As long as you've got a reasonable sort of a spread of enterprises, and like if you start to try and chase things backwards and forwards, you're going to get caught out. So you just need a mix, and you need the cows and sheep together just for that symbiotic mix. Perhaps like in the future, perhaps more cattle heavy. rather than as many sheep. But
And
it really depends, like, because Dad's getting older. I'm going to have to really streamline the operation to make it like quite simple. I'm not too sure what that looks like at the minute.
and in terms of cattle, so you talked about your daily shifts. So prior to that, how were you
Oh,
managing the cattle?
just completely set stock, everything set stocked, and like just cattle getting discontent and breaking out. Yeah, when you look back, and then when we were set stocked, like we'd have terrible problems with staggers as well. Even after we'd bolus them for magnesium staggers, we'd still have quite a bit of bother. But touch wood, like the daily moves, I think it just keeps cattle a lot less stressed, and you're just able to manage your grass better.
And so in terms of, and that, I suppose, financial tracking or having that clear strategy of where you might or where the farm might head, do you have any ideas in terms of, is it accountants like the accountant Harry uses, or what would you, or I suppose who are you going to bring in for advice or guidance?
Well, we have had Newcastle University do the books before, but because like farm is such a personal thing, it's quite hard for him to say like, oh, get rid of this, do that. Like an accountant would tell an arable farmer to sell the combine, get a contractor in, but then the farmer can't get his crops cut because there's that much of a tight window. Uh, Sometimes an accountant can't actually run a farm. Is that a
Uh,
perfect cop-out answer?
Got the mic.
I think
uh,
it's not necessarily, it's to do with a farm team approach, isn't it? It's bringing in the skill set, and that I suppose, and where is the there's a well, firstly, William, look out, but your dad is behind you. That's
I
a
know.
top tip from Paul. And also, and there's a question from Chris, which is, have you looked into maximum sustainable output type approach?
Yes, but the main issue with that is father-son relation, and cutting like output by a huge amount at the minute seems quite and that system relies on an outwintering to keep costs down as much. Now, if I had a 250 acre dry hill that I could stockpile, I'd immediately have all the cows out, but I don't. Like I have to just farm with what I've got. And you do, if you can't do that cheap system and you've got to put cattle in, that I don't know if it quite stacks up to have native cattle on the place. Plus, also you have got to then find markets for these. And to be honest, that's quite a hard job in itself to market all these things. Whereas you can take a heap of stirks to the mart, sell it, and you've got cash in the bank. That's worth quite a lot.
yeah.
So in terms, so at
Probably
the
a good
moment,
amount.
that the flexibility is having those continental cross type cattle, isn't it? So that you can sell them at any point in that
Yeah.
store during as wean calves all the way through to the following spring, whatever. So it's that bit of your business is
But
is
like
needed
the
at the
maximum
moment.
sustain, it makes like quite a lot of sense to me to get away from a lot of inputs that are just energy heavy, and the price of them will go up.
So that an example of investing in your Bakashi system to try and get to that point.
That is one, yeah, yeah. That just makes a lot better use of everything. It turns what was like something of a liability into an asset.
Can I ask you both, what's your biggest worry? What keeps you awake at night? Farming wise, I don't need to know anything too personal. William, how about you?
Um, I don't know. Probably just the medium term of like farming. Like there's just quite a lot of headwinds at the minute that are all just piling on the industry. And if we could get over that, then things are probably looking quite good.
Yeah, yeah.
Just government. Everyone's just sick of government.
What about you, Harry?
I don't really. I'm not really much of a worrier. So I'm a bit of a cop out, really. I don't know. I sleep pretty well.
But you got so much going on.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose the only thing why you worry about is the children, really. So and that's not really farming based. So yeah, every challenge is like we've had a lot of disasters. Like I would be 13 when we had foot and mouth. Like that was pretty. And we actually had it. So that was pretty graphic. Like we've been through quite a lot of bad things, and every sort of no matter how bad they are, there's always some opportunity comes out of it. And actually, I suppose you just have to look on as long as the sun comes up the next day and you're alive to see it. I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Every challenge does bring an opportunity of some description. And well, yeah, if you look like around here, a lot of people that got foot and mouth didn't actually go back into agriculture or went into some sort of diversification and not back into agriculture, but back into livestock or done some sort of different thing. So it gives you that, sometimes the disaster gives you an opportunity to do something different, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess for young people coming into the industry currently, it's all doom and gloom, isn't it? And when you're younger, you probably don't realize that things will kind of pan out and quietly get better. But yeah, no, thank you, you two. Liz, how are we doing for time?
Yeah, we're last few minutes really. This too shall pass type philosophy.
I know, as Fleabag said, it'll pass.
Maybe not continue to quote from Fleabag, you'll be fine. But I think it's interesting because also I didn't mention in the intro, but I know both of these from a discussion group. So there's also you're fortunate to have quite a good support network, aren't you, around you of other farmers and also people with a variety of different systems. So you can sort of tweak your system, or at least it allows you to not defend, but understand the context of why you do what you do.
I think
I have two. Go on, Harry.
I was to say, our discussion group, the County Durham grazing group that Liz heads up, and obviously I'm in with William and his family and other farmers from the area. I think is a really great group, and it is a really special group, in my opinion, because unlike probably a lot of farming sort of get-togethers, it's sort of a bragging system of what's going great. Actually, the great thing about our group is it's nearly like top trumps of who's had the biggest cock up and who's had the biggest disaster, which no matter how sort of down you go into the meeting, you come out feeling that actually it's not that bad for what you're going through. And I think that's really sounds quite a negative thing, but it's actually, I think it's a really positive thing because we all have a lot of problems. Like nobody, that's also conscious of showing all nice pictures. Everything looks rosy, but those cows on that fodder beet today look bloody awful, and they look great in that picture. So it can be it'd be good to sort of like share problems and hear other people's problems, as it were.
And I think in that comes from, I mean, you've known each other for years, haven't you? So there's a bit of vulnerability, so you are able to share what's going on, and it's not all bravado.
Yeah.
Sorry, William, what were you going to add?
No, as Harry put it as best as you possibly could. It's just the group's a good therapy session, I think. And like I have two extraordinarily good farmers just down the road as well that I always ask for advice. Like I'm forever pestering people that are just far better farmers than myself for information and advice. And yeah, you just learn it all from other people.
Sometimes you do think, oh, I'm not going to ask that person those questions because it's a bit awkward and they don't know me or whatever. But you find actually if you do ask people those questions, they love like sharing and talking and telling you about their system and what's gone wrong and giving you help with yours. So I think you should never be too shy to ask. And if they are the sort of person that's not interested, then it's quite rude. We don't really want to talk to them anyway. But I have never come across anybody like that within the farming industry when you want to get help and questions, etc.
Thank you. So anything else to add, Nick, or we are 1 minute away
No,
from...
I think, yeah, I think they're a dream team, these two. And I maybe need to go and see Harry for a bull.
I wonder what you were about to say there.
No, I think no, it's been really enjoyable, and yeah, well, thank you for your time, chaps, and thanks to everyone on the call for rocking up.
And
I hope
the questions. So yeah, thank
yeah,
you.
and I hope everyone is all right after the horrendous weather the weekend, which Liz didn't have because she's in the soft side.
I think we did. Maybe not as bad. We didn't lose electricity. Just to say thank you to Frank Parkinson Agriculture Trust for funding towards this, and we have got another one of these on the 24th of February, and that will be focusing more on people more on the sort of lowlands, so more into the Midlands. So both of them mixed farms, one of them with a farm shop. So similar in terms of conversation we've had this evening, but slightly further south in the soft lands, apparently. So yeah, that's on the 24th, but more details will be sent around nearer the time. But again, echoing what Nick said, thank you, Harry and William. And we will catch up shortly. Thanks, everybody. Bye for
Thank
now.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye now.